Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Okay, so it's still 1:27. We'll start at exactly 1:30 muna. Um, Thank you very much for attending our webinar for today, our special offering. Good afternoon, Sir Mike and Miss Jazz.
Hello, good afternoon, Miss Noel.
Good afternoon, Miss.
So, in behalf of Miss Jera, I welcome you all to the webinar for today. And today we have our topic is caring for students with anxiety and depression. So this is in partnership with Technology Transfer and Business Development Office, uh, Teaching and Learning Resource Center, and UP Cebu Office of Student Affairs.
Church.
Um, we'll start at exactly 1:30. Miss Jera is not yet here, but in case she is not still here during that time, we'll just start the webinar. Sir Mike, okay lang? So may I ask, everyone, where are we all from? What institutions, localities are we from? I see Don Honorio Ventura State University. Good afternoon po. We have our um, people from UPLB and and also Cagayan de Oro City. So we'll start in a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, so again, good afternoon, everyone. I am Noel Anseno from the Teaching and Learning Resource Center of UP Cebu, and I welcome you all to our webinar for this afternoon, caring for students with anxiety and depression with Miss Jacelu Sagrinas. So today we are live on YouTube, and currently we are on full capacity here in our Zoom meeting. So for those who are watching in YouTube, you may write your greetings and also your what province you're from, what place you're from here in the Philippines, or maybe there are people who are coming from abroad. So hello, good afternoon to everyone. So for now, before we proceed with our webinar proper, I will first introduce to you the webinar reminders for today's webinar. So let me share my screen first. So here are the things that you need to keep in mind during the duration of the webinar. So this webinar will be recorded, We will be keeping tab of the proceedings for this webinar for documentation purposes. You are free to leave if you feel uncomfortable that this session will be recorded. So here are the webinar netiquettes to note. So please mute your microphone during the talk. We want to make sure that the speaker's voice is clear to everyone, and we may opt to remove you if you don't follow this request. So also refrain from taking pictures or videos of the talk. If you do so, you will be held accountable of data privacy violations if the copy you created leaks into other internet outlets. We wish to keep the identity of our participants private, so as yours as well. So if you want to review this webinar, you can rewatch this on our YouTube channel, which is the TLRC UP Cebu. So also avoid using the annotation tool. So once the annotation tool is activated, you might unconsciously swerve your arrow towards the speaker's presentation and draw unnecessary lines that may block the participant's view on some text and images on the slide. So later, if you have questions while the talk is ongoing, you may put them in the chat box. So after the talk, you will have a chance to ask your questions. So for those who are in our YouTube live, you may type in your questions in the live chat box. So we wish for you to only use the chat box rather than voice because of our time constraint. And don't forget to evaluate. Your inputs on the webinar will help us improve our next webinars. Please do not forget to evaluate. After you have answered the form, so we will be giving the evaluation link right after the webinar. So after you have answered the forms, you will be given a proof of participation. So the evaluation link will be open right after the webinar and shall remain open for only 15 minutes. So for the YouTube, again, for the YouTube live stream, for those who are watching the YouTube live stream, the instructions will be given later on. So our webinar is currently live streaming on our YouTube channel, TLRC UP Cebu. For those watching through YouTube, you will get your proof of participation by staying until the end of the session. We will be announcing the instructions at the live chat, so please stay tuned. So for our socials, if you want to get updated with the latest webinar and trainings, follow and contact us on these platforms. So we have our Facebook page, Teaching and Learning Resource Center, University of the Philippines, Cebu, and our YouTube channel, TLRC UP Cebu. You can also visit us as tlrc.upcebu.edu.ph, and you can email us at lrc.upcebu@up.edu.ph. So again, welcome everyone to this webinar. And to introduce our speaker for today, we have Sir Michael Galorio. Sir Mike, please take it away. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Noel. And again, good afternoon, everyone, for joining us today. So it is my honor to introduce our resource speaker this afternoon. She is fondly known as Ms. Jazz. She is an experienced guidance counselor with a demonstrated working history in the education sector. She is a graduate of the Bachelor of Arts in Psychology program from the University of the Philippines, Cebu in 2013. She finished her Master of Arts in Guidance and Counseling from Cebu Normal University in 2017 while working as a counselor at Sacred Heart School Ateneo de Cebu from 2014 to 2019. In 2017, she ranked third place in the Guidance Counselor Licensure Examination and has been awarded with a Certificate of Distinction by the Professional Regulation Commission and an Award of Distinction from Cebu Normal University. During the height of the pandemic in April 2020, she, along with her counselor friends and colleagues, founded Cebu Counselor Online Psychological and Emotional Support, or Cebu COOPS, which offered free online and mobile counseling services. As a group, their efforts were recognized by several media outlets such as the ABS-CBN, the Cebu Daily News, and UNTV, and more. They were able to cater for more than 300 clients all over the country and even abroad. Currently, she is a guidance services specialist for the College of Communication, Art and Design of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. Everyone, let us give a virtual applause to Ms. Jazilo Satorinas. Good afternoon, Ms. Jazz.
Good afternoon, Sir Michael. Good afternoon also, Miss Noel, and to all our participants today. So, hi again, I'm Miss Jazz, one of UPC Boost Guidance Services Specialist. And thank you for taking the time today to learn about how to care for not only for students, but even with your significant others who are experiencing anxiety and depression. So, just to start, so before we start, I just want to get a feel of how everyone is doing this Saturday afternoon. So as you can see in the photo presented right now, there are different emotions that are being presented. And all you have to do is just identify what emotion or what you're feeling right now, and just try to identify which emotion which zone that emotion belongs to. So all you have to do is just click on the poll right now, just so that we can get a feel of how everyone is doing or how everyone is feeling today. So we'll see when we get to probably around 80%, just to check in if everyone is actually um, participating also. So how everyone is doing. Okay. So we are seeing currently, you know, the poll results, but we'll still wait for more to come in. Okay. So how is it over there in your location? How's the weather? So if while waiting for the poll to end, maybe you can type in also in the chat box, how's the weather there in your location? Here in Cebu, it's kind of gloomy.
It's gloomy also here in Mandaue, Miss.
Um, so how about the rest, no? From where you are, how's the weather over there? Okay. Hoping that we will stay safe, no, despite the pandemic. Okay. So we have reached around 75%. Probably we can show the answer now, Sir Michael. Okay. So I don't know if you are you seeing the results. So far we have participants who answered no on in the different zones. So we are leading with our green zone, followed by the blue zone, and then we have the yellow and the red zone. So for those who are in the blue zone, who are characterized by sadness or feeling tired, take the time. I hope that you take the time to get a rest or take it easy. For those in the yellow zone, maybe just slow down a bit, no, because you're probably feeling anxious or agitated or probably nervous. Now, for those in the red zone, since you're experiencing high intensity emotions, similar to the traffic lights, take a stop for a moment or pause. But for most of the participants here, who clicked on the green zone, just like the traffic lights, it also signals for us to go and start on certain activities. Okay. So regardless of what zone you are in right now, acknowledge your feelings, and maybe this afternoon's webinar may be helpful for you, not only for you, but also for the people around you as well. So care for students with anxiety and depression. Now, usually we hear the term anxiety and depression, no, especially right now or this month. It's actually the mental health month, and we might there will be probably a surge of where topics relating to this. But what how do we really understand, or how do we really define anxiety and depression? So to begin, when we talk about anxiety, anxiety is actually a normal reaction to stress. Now, and at times, it can actually be beneficial in some situations. So it can alert us to dangers, and it can also help us prepare and pay attention. So, example, when you are going to give a talk to hundreds of people, or you might be taking your final exam or your licensure examination, there is anxiety that comes with it, and it actually helps you prepare for the for the upcoming event. So with that, you would want to do well, you do not want to fail, and because of that, you study ahead or you prepare your talking points prior to your talk. Now, this normal feeling of nervousness or anxiousness also differ from anxiety disorders. Now, how can you tell if your anxiety is normal or a sign of anxiety disorder? So, when we talk about anxiety disorder, it actually involves excessive fear or anxiety. So, according to Madoc, there are three measures or indicators wherein you can check if your anxiety or fear is excessive. So, so there is normal anxiety and nervousness, but how do we know if it's not an anxiety disorder? But if anxiety is getting in the way of important activities, so it is more likely to be an anxiety disorder. So with this, anxiety disorders can sometimes even dictate the life choices that a person would make, such as their career and their educational goals. Or it can also limit a person's participation in social or family activities and other activities, no, and it can sometimes even lead to serious complications such as depression, alcoholism, or drug abuse. Now, the second indicator is severity. So, if your anxiety is unpleasant but not constant, severe, or overwhelming, then it is probably not an anxiety disorder. So, anxiety disorders typically cause severe anxiety, which can be persistent, exhausting, and demoralizing. So, example, a panic attack is an episode of severe anxiety accompanied by certain physical manifestations or symptoms such as shortness of breath, racing heart, sweating, dizziness, nausea, trembling, feelings of unreality, and etc. So, with these symptoms or physical symptoms, these are also some ways for you to identify if the anxiety is also too much, because there are also physical manifestations to check on it. Now, the third one is in terms of appropriateness. So, people often feel anxiety when they are confronted by a situation that is stressful or risky. So, example, no, mothers who are planning to give birth. So, sometimes it's a stressful or even a risky situation, no? How will you be able to give birth safely? No, will your baby be safe or will you be safe? So especially right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are situations or events that would cause anxiety, especially right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. That there are many changes. So there's a worry of how to go through with the routines that you were used to before, or the changes in school, in work, or in the family situation. So that uncertainty will also lead to anxiety. Now, with an anxiety disorder, however, a, a person would feel um, anxiety that is out of proportion to the risk or the danger that's involved. So a person with an anxiety disorder usually can tell that their actions are exaggerated and unnecessarily strong. But the problem is that they cannot also bring easily their anxiety under control. So in general, for a person to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, the fear or anxiety, according to the American Psychiatric Association, it must be out of proportion to the situation, or it's age inappropriate, or it also hinders their ability to function normally. Now, anxiety disorders can also cause people to try to avoid situations that trigger or worsen their symptoms. So they will avoid it, And because of that, it may also affect their job performance, their schoolwork, and even their personal relationships. Now, there are actually several anxiety disorders, but I won't be delving too much about it because it will also lead to another discussion already. But some of these would include generalized anxiety disorder, separation anxiety disorder. Your phobias are actually anxiety disorders as well. So that's an overview of your anxiety disorders. Now, aside from anxiety, we also commonly encounter the term depression. So sometimes we hear people, no, especially when we talk with students sometimes, or even when we're just talking with friends, that they would be saying to us, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling really down. But how can we differentiate it from depression, or let's say, how do we differentiate it from clinical depression? And how do we know if it's something that's more severe or would really need help? So when we talk about depression, it is more than simply feeling unhappy or fed up for a few days. So again, most people go through periods of feeling down, but when you're depressed or clinically depressed, you feel persistently sad for weeks or months rather than just a few days. And it ranges from lasting feelings of unhappiness and hopelessness to losing interest in the things that you used to enjoy. And some would also even feel very tearful, and many people with depression also have symptoms of anxiety. Now, in clinical depression, there can also be physical symptoms such as feeling constantly tired, sleeping badly, having no appetite or even sex drive, and various aches and pains. And we have to understand also that depression symptoms can vary from mild to severe and may include the following symptoms. Now, these symptoms that I'm showing on the screen right now should be at least 2 weeks, should be observed, or let's say must last at least 2 weeks, and must represent a change in your previous level of functioning. So these are some of the symptoms: feeling sad or having a depressed mood. There's loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite, weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting. There's trouble sleeping or might be sleeping too much also. There will be loss of energy or increased fatigue, increase in purposeless physical activity. So when we talk about purposeless physical activity, example, their inability to sit still, when you're pacing or hand wringing, or there's also slowed movements or speech. Now, these actions must be severe enough to be observable by others. So again, their behavior is not what they used to be, or their actions or their activity or physical activity is not what they used to be. And it can also be accompanied by feelings of worthlessness or feeling guilty. And they may also have difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, and possible thoughts of death or suicide. Now, again, symptoms must last at least 2 weeks and must represent a change in your previous level of functioning for a diagnosis of depression. Now, please note that the list that I showed you or presented to you is not for you to self diagnose or diagnose other people. So, only psychiatrists can diagnose, but this is just to raise awareness in instances wherein, as a significant other, you may notice changes in the behavior of your loved ones, which would also prompt or call for help. So at least you can have something that you can look into or reference. And from there, it would help that you would be able to ask help from a mental health professional. So during the early phase of the pandemic, there was a study conducted now in the Philippines, and it was reported that one fourth of the respondents in that study reported moderate to severe anxiety, and 1/6 reported moderate to severe depression and psychological impact. Now, considering these statistics, how do we know if someone has a mental health problem? How can we support others, not only students, but even our significant others who might be having anxiety and or depression and other mental health concerns? Now, sometimes it will seem obvious when someone is going through a hard time, and the symptoms I presented earlier might be more evident, but there are also times when there is no simple way of knowing if they have a mental health problem. And the thing is, sometimes you do not need to know everything, which is why it's more important that we are able to respond sensitively and compassionately to someone who seems troubled, rather than finding out if there is whether or not they have a diagnosis. Although, yes, a diagnosis is also important to your significant other, so that they will also be able to receive the appropriate kind of help. Now, although certain symptoms are common with specific mental health problems, no two people will behave exactly the same way when they are unwell. So if you know that person well, if it's a family member, student, classmate, workmate, or your friend, you will be the first to notice if there are changes in their behavior or mood. So if you're worried about someone, it can be difficult a bit to, or we might be overwhelmed on, or let's say, might be at a loss of what to do. However, when you are aware that there is an issue, it is important not to wait, because waiting and hoping that they will come to you for help might lose valuable time in getting them the support. So, talking to someone is often the first step to take when you know that they're going through a hard time. So, this way, you can find out what is troubling them and what you can do to help. Now, hearing about anxiety and depression, how would we be able to support our loved ones and significant others? Now, the tips that I will be presenting in the succeeding slides will be focusing more on how we can be a supportive, significant other, or individual to someone who might be experiencing anxiety, depression, and other mental health concerns. So, this view or perspective will be more for of the general public and will be more aligned also to psychological first aid. Now, just a disclaimer, the tips presented are not intended to substitute diagnosis, therapy, or treatment. So, this is provided only to help people get started in their search for relevant information and as a guide for improving mental health. So, please remember that everyone's experiences are unique. So, again, no two people are alike, and your experiences are also complex. And the information and strategies may not work for your unique situation. So, if possible, if your situation or your family member or your loved one's situation is more unique, complex, or severe, then it's always preferable to seek professional help when needed. Okay. So, how do we support someone having mental health concerns? So, the first one would be to educate yourself. And I am thankful that a number of us are here this afternoon, even on a weekend. No? But you shared your time, or rather, you invested your time on how to assist. You invested your time today to learn how to assist students or significant others who are having mental health concerns. And it shows a great deal of how much you care as well. No? And with this, when you educate yourself, it actually helps you identify symptoms or things to look out for. So with that, you will know how to spot someone who is having mental health concerns. So, and this could be changes in, let's say, probably changes in mood, changes in unusual, or there is unusual behavior presented by them. Or let's say earlier, you will be able to identify certain symptoms, no, that I presented earlier. And with that, you will be able to spot or maybe like just check on them if they're still okay, if they're still doing well, or might be having certain problems already. And with that, by educating yourself as well, you are allowing yourself to know what are the proper response options. So when someone is going through mental health concerns, you would know what to do, what not to do, or limitations and boundaries in terms of the help that you can offer. And also, you will be able to identify mental health community links in a way that you will be asking the student, what are the changes in their life, what are the individuals that you can refer to for mental health concerns. So with that, you will be able to know who to refer, and what kind of assistance that they can offer as well. So that's in terms of educating yourself. Now, number two would be to set time aside with no distractions. Now, when you try to talk to someone and try to ask them how they are, it is too important to provide an open and non-judgmental space or environment with no distractions. So do not do it when you are very busy or in the middle of the job or in the middle of something or catching up on deadlines. And that's the time that you will be asking the student, no? Because it's very important that you give them your full attention. And at the same time, you also prepare, or it also ensure you also prepare to be in the right headspace to be able to talk about their concerns. So it is not something that you just insert in the midst of your busy schedule or your busy day. So it is something that you really give your time, energy, and your attention. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is to ensure that you are in the right headspace to talk to them about their concerns, because it would really entail patience to hear them out. No, so um, as counselors, sometimes we experience students who do not get directly to the point, or probably they might have difficulty expressing themselves and their thoughts and their experiences. So in our end, we would really have to ask questions. We would have to clarify to make sure that we understand what it is exactly that they think and or feel, or ask them what are the changes in their life. So we will have to facilitate questions, and it might be the same for you as well. So you might experience students or significant others who might have, or let's say, might take time to open up or to share. So you would really need to be in the right headspace also for that. And of course, there are also some people, no, or individuals that when you ask them how they are doing, and sometimes they will just reply, "I'm okay, miss." And just to end the discussion, or just probably to get you off their backs. But then, if you're really sincere with getting to know their concerns, then give them the time and also allow yourself to be in the headspace to help and hear them out. Okay. So again, that's setting time aside with no distractions. Now, third one is to let them share as much or as little as they want to. So similar to psychological first aid. So if you were able to join was able to attend the my other talk on psychological first aid, so you will be familiar with look, listen, and link. So with this, this is similar to the psychological first aid in the listening part. So we do not force them to talk, but at the same time, if they are talking, we listen with our eyes, with our ears, and with our heart. So if they're able to share more, let them lead the discussion at their own pace. So again, do not pressure them to talk. That's why it's very important that you have the time, the energy, and in the headspace, because it will really entail patience. So don't put pressure on them to tell you anything also that they aren't ready to talk about. So you can just tell them, just share what you feel more comfortable or most comfortable sharing to me. So, and because talking can actually take a lot of trust and courage. So usually when students share during our counseling, I usually thank them. No, thank you for trusting me with your story, and for really having the courage to tell your concerns. No, because it's not easy an easy task as well to really share and open up, no, because it also opens you or opens the individual to vulnerabilities. So with that, it's also, you might also be the only person or the first person that they have been able to talk to about it. So just be patient with them, and you might even be the first person to know about it. So with that, listen carefully to what they tell you. So if ever, try to repeat what they have said back to them to ensure that you have understood it. No? So example, so you were saying earlier that you were feeling down after you had a fight with your mother. Is that correct? So just ask them back to verify if you understood what they said correctly. So the thing is, whatever they share, you do not necessarily have to agree with what they are saying, because they might have their own thoughts or opinions about their situation. But by showing that you understand how they feel, you're letting them know that you respect their feelings. So with that, it's also important that um, you create space for people. This is create space for people to be heard. Okay. So listening and seeking to understand is more powerful than offering advices, because sometimes these students, these individuals would simply just want to share. They just want to unload their feelings, and they might not have the chance to say it to anyone. No? So sometimes they do not need advices. So um, there are times when I'm having checking in sessions with students, and I ask them, how are they? How's their home situation? How's school? How's their experiences with their teachers, with their classmates? And there was this one time when I've had a client or a student tell me that, um, Miss, this teacher talked to me and actually came to me, and he was asking me how I was doing, um, and asking me how I am. And at first, I replied, "Oh, that wow, that's good. No, that your teacher is checking up on you to know how you're feeling, because not everyone has the time to do that." And then he replied to me, "Yes, miss, but eventually, along the way, he just told me that I should do this, that I should be thankful, and that I should be grateful that I have the opportunity to go to school." And he was telling me all these things that on what I should be, or what I should not do, and all those things. And after that, miss, you know what? I just listened, and I just kept quiet. No, I just kept quiet. I let him go on, and then I just nodded. And after that, I did not share anymore. So with that, it is actually very counterproductive. No, like you're asking the person or the student how they are, but then eventually you're lecturing them on what to do, and that itself limits the interaction. That limits the conversation, and it stops it. And hearing that confirmed by a student was really striking. Um, Especially when he just said, "After that, miss, I just nodded and kept quiet, and I did not share anymore." So as educators, as friends, as colleagues, sometimes we do not need to give advices. Maybe they already have those ideas in their head about what they should be doing, but please allow them to share first, and listen to them first. So by be supportive when they share their experiences, and let them know that they are valued and that they are cared for. So with that, it's also important that again, be there to listen. And again, that listening and seeking to understand is really a powerful tool to initiate conversations, to build trust, to build rapport, and to build a warm, positive environment for the student or for the significant other. So again, with that, part of this is to also choose your words carefully. So avoid phrases that may make someone feel ashamed, no? So especially earlier, the one I shared earlier, when the teacher was telling to the student that you should be grateful, you should be thankful that you have all this, and you should be doing this. So avoid phrases that may make someone feel ashamed, because you never know, what if they are grateful, what if they are thankful. So by saying that, you're making, probably you might make the student feel, or the individual feel, that they're not doing enough even when they are thankful or grateful. So other phrases, no, like stop overthinking things, or it could be worse, or someone have it worse. There are people in Africa. So but instead, let them express what they are experiencing, and reassure them that it is fine to say how you feel, and that you are there to listen. So that's why it's very important that we remember this. No? It's also part of the listening and psychological first aid. Okay. So moving on to the fourth one. Don't try to diagnose or second guess their feelings. So we have to understand that we are not all medical experts. And while we may be happy to talk and offer support, you're probably not aligned with our experience. Basically, your role is to facilitate and start a conversation, and it might open up possibilities for them to seek further professional mental health. So, and also, try to avoid the use of medical terms. So unless someone has been diagnosed by a professional, and if they're comfortable using such terms, no. So as much as possible, just stick to describing their specific experiences, or their specific emotions or feelings. Okay. So again, we try to avoid diagnosing, because of course it might be used in a wrong way. So I've heard people who casually uses, no, when, or let's say, being very conscious about arrangements, organization, they automatically say, oh, I have OCD. So sometimes it's being used in casual conversation, but actually these disorders are even more complex and severe. And we hope to educate more that it's not as simple as that as well. No, so just like earlier when I explained about anxiety, may feel down for, or feel sad for a few days, but not everyone is clinically depressed. So we have to be careful also using these terms, and we have to use them appropriately as well. Okay. So number 5 is to keep questions open-ended. So instead of stating observations, so example, you might be saying, I can see you're feeling very low. Try to state it in a question, no? Just so we can facilitate a conversation with them. So let's say, how are you feeling today? So try to keep your language neutral. So give the person the time, give also the person the time to answer, and try not to grill them with too many questions, because they might also be wondering, why is this person asking me so many things? No, is this an interview of some sort? Or just also try to make sure that it's also relevant. No, so let's say what you're asking will also be relevant to the situation at hand. No, and make sure that to paste questions well, that sure that it's also related to the previous questions or to the sharing of the individual. So it's not jumping from one topic to another. No, so stick to the relevant questions. Okay, what is needed? No, so sometimes you might be curious about other things, but we have to know. We have to keep our focus, on what is the most essential questions, or to the situation at hand. Okay, so what questions can help facilitate conversations? So I'm sure you're familiar with open-ended and close-ended questions. So when we talk about close-ended questions, so these are easily answerable by yes or no. So example, are you okay? And usually the answer to that is a yes or a no. But we can frame it in a way that it can lead to more conversation. So example, how are you feeling today? And other questions can help facilitate this is the use of what and how questions. So example, what are some of the changes you have experienced lately? What are the significant events in your life lately that you feel like that has an impact on you? So the use of the what question actually helps facilitate information and really encourage the use of why questions because it might put the client, the student, or the individual at a defensive. So, example, why did you not pass your work? So sometimes it puts them at the defensive. No, so instead of asking that, try asking, "May I ask what happened?" No, so it's more of information gathering than defending the self. So that's for number five, keeping questions open ended. All right. So number six would be to talk about well-being. So one of the tenets of positive psychology is really to build on person's strengths. So what do they do to cope? How are they handling their concerns? So if they mentioned that they're feeling down, or if they mentioned that they've been exhibiting physical symptoms of anxiety, what do they do in these situations? So we build on that, and we also get to realize, and sometimes when we ask them, we get to realize, oh, they're actually doing something about it, no, but probably they might be do you think that will work this time? So if not, what can we do instead? No, or let's say what probably can we modify what you did before? So at least it's really coming from them. So it's not something that you impose on them. So it's really the suggestion, the strategies come from them. So it's really building on their strengths, because of course we have different ways of coping, and your coping might not be as effective when applied to their specific situation. So I've heard stories, no, like it becomes like a competition, no, ako manggani, or I don't know if you're Bisaya, but there are even in my situation I did this, so it might be a similar situation to yours, so try doing this like that. But we even asked them what they have done so far, because what if they did but it did not work for their situation? So we have to ask them as well and build on that. So try asking about ways that they distress, or what they practice for self-care, and ask if they find anything helpful. So it's also um, uh, important to know as well, how are they doing in terms of their basic needs or their self-care. So such as exercising, having a healthy diet, and getting a good night's sleep. So these are actually the basic no of self-care. And actually this can help protect the mental health, and it can also help you sustain your well-being. So this is the basic, but it's actually also very important for sustainability. So when we talk about anxiety and depression, there are also um, certain activities that you can look into, no, especially with being mindful about your emotions. So there's meditation, there's breathing exercises, especially no for those who have anxiety. Breathing exercises really help, because it's either when you're too anxious, no, there's you have a very fast breathing pace or rapid breathing, or you might be holding your breath. So it's very important to have a
Good afternoon. Na-stop po. I think there is a problem on the case of our speaker. Michael, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
meron po
Miss.
bang problem sa...
Yes, Miss. Nawala po si Mrs. Jazz. Okay, nababalik na po siya. Hi, Miss Jazz.
I think there was a problem in our speaker's
Connection.
internet.
Connections.
Hello,
Hi,
sorry.
Jazz.
Yeah, sorry. I think there are problems with, because it's kind of gloomy here. So there I think it's a it's a challenge to the internet connection. So I think at least I'm back. So I will just like to, I think, go back, all right,
Yes,
to
Miss.
my
Yeah.
slides. Thank you. Just give me a moment.
Okay. Sometimes kasi po we have problem with the internet connection, especially if the rain is too heavy or it's gloomy outside. And it has been raining in Cebu for almost 1 week already, if I'm not mistaken. So medyo yung signal po namin dito sa ng internet signal po namin dito, medyo mababa po sa lahat actually po.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Miss Jara. And yeah, it's been raining so hard in Cebu for quite a while already, for a week. That's true, no? Yeah. So anyway, we'll go back, and thank you so much for staying. So I think earlier, let me just recap. I talked about, we are already on the sixth tip, no, talking about well-being and how we should ask students or individuals how they build on, how to build on their strengths and what they used to do before. And when talking about self-care, when basic self-care would, when we talk about prioritizing our self-care or basic needs, we check into these most important, no, and we should prioritize on this, because this is something that we can do on a daily, and this is something that we still continue to do, no. We have to check on our sleep, our hydration. Are we eating healthy foods? Do we have safety, no, in terms of our basic needs of food, water, shelter, our safety? And then from that, this is where we should focus more, no, in terms of our self-care. So it might seem very basic, but it's actually very important, because this really sustains us. And if when we talk also about self-care, no, sometimes we have the need to have for instant relief, especially when you're too stressed with work, no, you're bombarded with so many things in at work. So sometimes you just need that instant relief. So some of us would take a nap, have a massage, or walk, or just meditate for a while. So sometimes these activities would give instant relief. And also we also have to look into what are, aside from that, growth as well, no, in terms of self-care. So what can help you in terms of having that future relief as well? And you can do that probably through journaling, therapy. Sometimes people go to therapy or to counseling because they might think that it will give them an instant solution to their problem. But actually, when you go to counseling sessions or therapy, it's actually a journey. So it's not really an instant, you might not see an instant result to it, because it would focus more on changing your habits, making uncomfortable decisions, no, changing or challenging your automatic thoughts. So, and that would take time, but it's also important that you look into this, because it will also help you, and also will help your students as well, if ever. Okay, so again, that's about talking about your well-being. And again, I would always advocate, this is really because there are times, no, that when you're having trouble coping with the basic, with the latest changes in your life, and you feel like the coping strategies that you used to do before are not as effective, I always encourage clients or students to go back to the basic. So basic self-care. Are you sleeping well? Because usually this is really one of the first indications, no, so some would mention that their sleep is compromised. So especially when at the start of the pandemic, no, we've had clients tell us that, miss, I've been having trouble sleeping, or I sleep so late already, and that, or probably they just have difficulty sleeping, or some of them would be skipping their meals, or they let go of exercise, so without realizing that these are the basic self-care needs. Okay, so if you're having troubles, or for your students, try asking them how they are so far in these aspects. Are they eating well? Are they sleeping? Are they exercising? And if not, try to encourage them as well. No, there are many studies that support that if you sustain these, it would really contribute to overall well-being. All right, so number 7 is to offer them help. So offer them help in seeking professional support, and provide information on ways to do this. So similar to educating, offer them your resources, your time, and reassurance. And you might want to offer to them to go to a mental health professional, or refer them, or help them talk to a friend or a family member. So example, with what you're experiencing right now, do you want to talk to a mental health professional? So if ever I can help you with it, no, I can refer you, or if you feel more comfortable, I can go with you to a mental health professional. But with that, try not to take control, no, so sometimes you might really want to ensure their wellness also, but allow them to make the decisions, because ultimately it's their life. So it's their they have to also make decisions for their own, unless of course there are instances of harm. So if there's harm to self, there's harm to others, or someone is harming them, then please ensure that they get the help that they really need. Okay. And aside from that, this is also part of psychological first aid. No, when you link, you also give accurate information. So if there is something that they would need more information about, if you know the answer to that and you're confident through your research, so give them the information. But of course, make sure that it's legit, as they say, legit, or make sure that it is accurate. So with a proper reference or resource. So offer correct information. And let's say if you do not know the answer to their question, or you do not know, then try to offer to help. Let's say try asking it out for them. Let's say, I do not know the answer to that, but let me find it out for you, or I can refer you to this person who will be more knowledgeable and on this matter. So as long as you refer them to the right person, or give them the accurate information. So when you offer correct information, offer to go with them, if ever, if they're okay with it, if need for proper diagnosis. So in try to it would also be helpful if they will be needing really mental health um, diagnosis or mental health diagnosis, because what if in cases that would they need medication, would they need therapy? So it's really getting them the appropriate help. All right. And lastly, I think I'm down to my last one. So it's also important that as a helper, no, to know your limits. So although there are only a few mental health professionals in the country, there are still many ways for you to assist someone, such as the use of psychological first aid. But also remember that there are limitations to that. So if you feel like what they are sharing to you or what they're exhibiting is already beyond your training or skill, refer them to the proper mental health professional. So whether a counselor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist. So know your limits first. Know your limits, because first and foremost, we aim to do no harm. So ask for help if you are really having a difficulty assisting them already. Okay. So again, ask for help if the problem is serious. If you believe that they are in immediate danger or that they have injuries that need medical attention, then you have to take action with that first and attend to that first to make sure that they are safe, and be there, be there for them, but at the same time also communicate your boundaries. Okay. So you might be the only person that they might ask help from, the or let's say that they're comfortable sharing to. But the thing is, you also have your life. Okay. So you won't be there for them 24/7. You have your work, you have family, you have other responsibilities. So be able to communicate your boundaries. So example, if with a friend, no, so friend, I am only available on weekends because I'm very busy at work, no, but it does not decrease my concern for you. So if it's okay with you, can we talk more about it on weekends so that I can give my full attention to it? So maybe we can video call or meet up so that we will be able to talk more about your concerns. So again, be able to communicate that you won't be available all the time. No, just know that you are not a crisis hotline. You are not 911. So it's also important that you also look after yourself to be able to help more. Now, for teachers, for educators, I understand that the school year is now starting. No, so most of the school started last August or last September. So at the start of your classes or at the start of your meeting with the students, communicate what are your expectations for them. So set your expectations. So what do you expect from them? What can they expect from you? So let's say, do you expect them to give quality work? Do you expect them to submit during the deadline? Do you expect them to communicate with you within 3 days after submission on the reason that they were not able to submit? And what can they expect from you as well? No, so let's say you can say, from my end, after you submit your requirements or your activities, give me 3 days to check and I will give you feedback on that. So if there are special cases also in the class, what's your policy on it? So what, and you can also identify as a teacher, what are the special cases and what is the corresponding accommodation. So ask them, let's say when you're having an accommodation, ask them, will they be able to submit still? Example, if they lapse the deadline, will they be able to submit still? Because if you are able to submit, I can give you this period or this timeline to catch up and submit. And if not, this will be your grade. So at least it's just clear to them as well. No? So and let's say if they want to consult with you and ask questions, what is your schedule? What's the time that what's the schedule of let's say of them reaching you out? Is it from 8 to 5? So be clear with them that, okay, teacher will not be responding after 5 p.m. because I also have other responsibilities and all. So be transparent with them and set that at the start, no, so that they know what um, what they can do, and also what are the special cases and accommodations. So communicate it, set expectations from them, and what they can expect from you as well. Okay, so let me just recap now, backtrack on my slides. So again, those tips, the tips presented are: number one, to educate yourself, no, to identify symptoms, know proper response options, and identify community links. Second is to again set time aside with no distraction. So it's not something that you just insert, but you really need to give your full attention and to be in the right headspace. And then let them share as much or as little as they want to. So again, not pressuring them to talk, but when they do, respecting them and listening to them, and choosing also, of course, your words carefully. And again, don't try to diagnose or second guess their feelings. So again, we stick to um, uh, we stick to explaining or identifying their situation from um, based on their feelings and experiences. And then keep questions open-ended. So keep your language neutral. Use what and how questions to facilitate more conversation or more information. And then talk about well-being, how they are coping, what have they what they have been doing so far, and then offer them help, no, linkages probably or information, and then of course lastly, know your limits as well. Now, if you want to know more about the tips presented, these are my sources. So if you would want to read more about how to become a supportive teacher, educator, or a loved one, then you can read more on this. So with that, thank you so much, and thank you really for taking the time today to learn about caring for students and with anxiety and depression. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Jazz. Medyo maulan po kasi dito sa Cebu. Miss Jazz, I will give you a little time to
Okay.
rest a bit. Okay, so let's say hi to our participants. Hello po dyan. Marami po tayo dito mga participants from NCR as well as from Mindanao as well. So we also have a lot of viewers from the YouTube channel, Miss Jazz. So it's really nice to see a lot of people really interested on this matter. We all know that the pandemic did not only bring the real disease, but also it bring another form of concern, which is actually mental health. Okay, so I think that's the reason why we also have a lot of participants today. I know some of them are parents, some of them are teachers, and some of them are even doctors and group of volunteer practitioners. So let me know if are ready na po kayo, Ms. Jazz, to answer some questions.
Yes, sure.
Okay. We have the first question coming from our YouTube live. Do young children experience the same depression symptoms? And how can I help very young students who have manifestation of depression due to death of family members, especially at this time of the pandemic? So really a relevant question na rin po. Kasi totoo, hindi lang teenagers or adults ang nakaka-experience ng depression. Ms. Jazz?
Okay, so you were I think the question was no if children exhibit signs of depression, no, but in terms of diagnosing, actually there is a certain age category to be able to diagnose, because usually these are mga adult disorders. So there won't be a very concrete way, no, and it might manifest in other childhood disorders, which is actually different. But to answer the question on how to be able to, let's say, facilitate conversation or to hear more about children, especially with the death of their family, especially young children, it is encouraged actually to use play or art to be able to express. So sometimes they are not able to express it verbally, no, because of course they might have their limitations on that. So before, what I used to do was that I give them a paper or crayons or other materials, and then I ask them, can you just share to me what happened during the example of this situation? So, and I give them the freedom to use the colors. So sometimes even the colors have under meaning. No, so let's say when they're done drawing, what I ask them is, I ask them, can you share to me what's going on with the drawing? Who is this person? Where are you in this picture? So at least from there, we have a point of discussion. So if it helps, especially for young children, through play or through art. So if they're not comfortable to really draw, you can use mga toys, no? So sometimes as counselors, we have, I've been a grade school counselor, by the way. So previously, so usually when we have different set of toys, and I just let them play with it, let them choose what they want to play with, and I just ask them, oh, so what are you doing? Who are these people? So really, it helps them know, or helps us also see um where they are currently, what's their state of, let's say, what are they thinking about, what's more salient to them, without really bombarding with them with so many questions. So I guess that now the use of play and art.
Thank you so much for that, Miss Jazz. Play and art can actually help you let the child open up, because again, the processing that happens with a child and an adult is different. And for children, it is best to use art and play. Okay, our next question, Miss Jazz. As a mental health professional, you have been receiving a lot of students' concerns, and you have been listening to them intently as well. How do you cope up with your mental health as well, given that, you know, Miss Jazz, there's a lot of problems, no, being talked to
Yeah.
you every day. So how do you cope up with it?
Okay, so personally, I think it's also because of through the years of practice, no, but if there's something that I really take note, it's really about the boundaries. I really communicate it to the students, no, or to the clients. So you can reach me through this time. Beyond that, I might be unresponsive. So unless of course if there are emergency cases, no. So usually because of that, because they know the boundaries, they won't be communicating that much during the time that I am off. So when I'm the time that I am off, I just really relax. No, um I catch up on movies, or I do exercise. I like going to the gym. So it's one way for me to really distress. And what else I go to malls. I just simply rest, no, especially now with the pandemic, we can't really go anywhere. But for me, I really take the time. I value my off time. So I put after 5 p.m. or after 6 p.m. I take off my counselor hat, and I'm just Jazz, who's resting, watching movies, exercising, and all those. So yeah, that's how I take care of my mental health. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Miss Jazz, for that. So again, if you're a mental health practitioner or you're a guidance counselor, just like Miss Jazz, it is best to know the boundaries and knowing when to take off your guidance counselor's hat and giving yourself a chance to rest and to enjoy as well. Because it is your task to listen, but it is not your task to bring all of that inside you. Okay, so thank you for that, Miss Jazz. There's another question here. One of the participants said that he has been, she has been wondering about their condition because all of their high school and college life, they struggle with physical manifestations that were badly embarrassing. So every time they talk or present in class, they experience blushing, excessive sweating, like in the face and armpits and palms, fast beating of heart, and even trembling. They are living with it and still manage to go through a lot of activities, even if they always experience those. They avoid having conversations and making people look at them or noticing them. And then when they discovered or read about anxiety, they somehow considered, is it signs of anxiety or was it anxiety that they are feeling? What do you think about it, Miss Jazz?
Okay, so there were mentioned no that there are also physical manifestations and all. So earlier in the first part of the talk, uh, there were three indicators of probable for, no, for anxiety disorder. So I think first was there was the severity, and first is interference. No, so example, if it's something that when we say it's already severe, then it interferes already to your daily life. So it's affecting how you perform and all those. No, it's affecting your day to day activity that you're not anymore able um, to perform no your usual daily activity. So second is the severity, no, if it's something not as I mentioned, like shortness of breath, nausea, dizziness, and lastly appropriateness. No, so there were those three indicators of if it's already an anxiety disorder. So if it's again, if it's how do you call this? Sorry, if it's um, in terms of interference, severity, and appropriateness. So if they are still able to, I think the first really indicator is interference. So if it's already interfering too much, you're not able to function more, then it might become an anxiety disorder. So if it's already persistent as well and it's severe, then it's something that you can try asking help from a mental health professional. Okay.
So you have to take note of those three. So one critical factor there is interference. Does the manifestation interfere, with your daily living or functions? So hopefully our participant who asked this could talk to a mental health professional regarding the physical manifestations and can actually have some tips no on how to decrease these kinds of manifestation or how to be more confident about themselves when especially talking to other people, because nowadays all of the processes that we have to talk to people and we have to communicate with people.
Yes, actually, because yeah, it's true, Miss Jara. No, so I I think I was also able to mention earlier that a certain degree of anxiety is also needed, no, for us, because example when we face life changing situations, of course it really brought about anxiety because we do not know what to do. And even for students, I think the very fact that they might be presenting their work, let's say some would have will be presenting their stage play or will be performing. So it actually is life changing for them because it will they might be presenting to a crowd, or it will also even have a direct effect on their grades. So that could also be a cause for their anxiety. But again, it's an indicator that you do not want to fail. Maybe you would. It means that you have to do something about it, so that you will be able to perform well.
So that's for that question. Ms. Jazz already gave us a very insightful answer for that. Okay. Next question. So we have a participant to ask. Good afternoon, Ms. Jazz. Thank you so much for these valuable insights. I would like to ask, how do you deal with students who are ruminating? I've had experience where students I've met several times before kept complaining about same problem over and over again, to the point where it feels like we're always back to square one. What is the best way to handle these kinds of situation?
Okay. Thank you so much. No, because I think that's also true to my case. Now, there are instances when I'm talking to a client and then we're usually going back. But I think it's very important that we try to identify what is their goal. So, um, this is in a counseling perspective also, no. So at the start actually of a counseling or a session, I usually ask them, um, what is your goal with you mentioned that you wanted to share. What is your goal? Do you want to solve it, or do you just want to share? So from there, we will be able to know, no, if they just want to share, okay, share. But let's say if they have a problem or they have a concern, we try to ask them, do you want to do something about your concern? So from there, you can lift, no. So if they say yes, miss, okay, so what have you done? What have you started? Okay, what have you started so far to be able to address this concern? Then from there, you can plot plans of action. So we really involve them. So it should not come from you only. So involve them. So you are not just a third party or an observer, no. So you have to be working together. So usually the suggestions or the tips that I usually give, no, it actually comes from the clients themselves. So example, when we talk about establishing boundaries, so I asked them, so what do you do to be able to do this? So they will be able to, miss, I usually do this. So, okay, is that working out for you? Na, yes, miss. Do you think there are changes still that you can do to modify? So it should be coming from them. So when you're coming in there, you do not come in as the expert of their lives, but rather you consult with them because they are the experts of their own lives. So you're just there to facilitate more, to make it more effective probably, or to just calibrate it. So yeah, so setting the goal and then working together. Now, what can we do if this is something that you want to solve?
Okay, so again, the key there is to know their goal. So by knowing their goal, they won't be talking about the same problem over and over because they understood that you wanted to know what they wanted to be done. Okay, so that's it. So we have few other questions. We are very sorry if we cannot accommodate all questions, but hopefully some of these questions can answer your questions as well. We have another question. This is quite also important because sometimes this is true. No, we cannot choose who our parents are or where we'll be staying at. Okay, so what should we do if the stressor are the family members? Say, for example, the parents. Some parents tend to deny that their child is struggling with depression or anxiety. How can we convince them to have their child assessed by a mental health professional? And in relation to this, what tips can you give, Ms. Jazz, to those individuals who cannot actually live outside their stressors? So if their stressors are within their family and they cannot live outside or be independent, what are the tips you can give to them?
Okay, thank you so much, no. And yeah, I think that is actually a struggle, no, especially when especially right now with the pandemic. I've had students talk to me, no, about, miss, what can I do? This, I'm living with my family member and it's stressing me out so much, or even, yeah, really the main cause for concern. But if it's not um if it's not something that would cause harm or danger already to your life, if it's something na, usually there are challenges, but if it's already something that causes danger or harm, we would really advocate for seeking help, no. So especially if there's abuse, then probably get in touch with the SWD or with your barangays, because um, as I mentioned, there are exemptions to certain situations or cases, and that's in the cases of harm, no, harm to self, harm to others, or someone is harming them. So you have the right, or let's say, to really inform, no, to seek for help also for them. But on the other hand, if it's more of arguments, disagreements within the family on opinions or and other matters, then the thing is, I think we go with the route of educating, but at the same time, if they feel like it's too stressful for them, what I mentioned is just to disengage or sometimes protect your peace na lang. So usually it comes with radical acceptance. There is radical acceptance also to it, no, na identifying, it's not brushing aside the issue, it's just that accepting that, okay, I cannot change my family member. This is already who they are. But what I can do is just protect myself and protect my peace already. So something like that. So, but of course, radical acceptance is not applicable in cases of abuse. Okay, so if there are already cases of abuse, then seek help, really. That's right. And for the other question about how do we encourage parents to really seek help, no, considering that their child is already exhibiting anxiety or depression, I would really advocate for data based. Let's say when you talk with a parent, make sure that you have data to back it up also. So let's say you were able to talk with a student, and or let's say other teachers have already seen it as well, or have witnessed it, or their classmates. So it's not to put or frame it in a way na, Madam, sir, we want to help your child, and we've been trying to do this, and your child has been expressing this, and the friends and also, of course, other teachers have also observed it as well. And we want the best for your child. We want, and let's, I hope that we can work together. So involve them in a way na it's not to pinpoint that there's something wrong with the child, but it's really frame it in a way na you want to help and we have to do it together, so that they will be able to perform well. Because I think sometimes sometimes parents would, of course, they think the best of their children, no, that their child is the best, and that there's nothing wrong with them. And sometimes it might be difficult for them to accept also that there is something wrong, or they might think that it is a reflection of their parenting. So they might think, Miss, is there something wrong with me? I just had a talk with a parent just last week, no, and she was saying, Miss, are we too strict with our child? Is that why he is doing this or doing this? So there are many questions also from their end. So we have to be gentle when we tell it to them, but we frame it in a way that we're working together to have that they are not alone. So if they're open, and let's say if you see that it would be really helpful, then we involve them, and hopefully they will be able to look into it as well, or at least think through it, no, it might not be immediate, but if we frame it in a way that we just want to help, then hopefully they will see that, no? Especially in the cases of minors, because that would really need a parent's consent. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I've seen a lot of parents who are actually like that.
Yeah.
But later on, I realized that some of them would really seek help later on, because it becomes it becomes one of the choices for the child's improvement.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think again, education and acceptance is really important. Speaking of students, what piece of advice can you give Miss Jazz to overachieving students who easily get pressured because of the competition within the classroom? And in relation to that, what advice you can also give to teachers whose students have been under achieving in the classroom, and how can they help these students develop a bit more or encourage them a bit more without over pressuring them? So these are two poles, no?
Yeah.
In the situation.
Opposite. Yeah. So I wouldn't really say about um I don't think I'm in the position to be able to really give the advice. But there were instances that I got to talk with, sometimes as counselors, we also deal with opposite poles, no? So we deal with, I was able to talk with students who are overachieving and how they feel burned out. And at the same time, we also have to check on students who are also struggling with their academic work. So in terms of overachieving students who are dealing with pressure, usually I try to ask them. So it's really involving, no, what are the reasons? And sometimes it's really because there are also expectations from them, not probably from their parents, or even sometimes it's a pressure put on themselves. So usually I ask them, who puts the pressure on you? Or let's say when they're talking, miss, because I have to do well and all that. So who is expecting that from you? So it's really we'll have to really check, no, what are the driving forces behind it. And it really varies from student to student. So it would from there, um usually we take the time to untangle all these expectations. So I ask them, what happens if, let's say, what do you think would happen if you would even get this kind of grade? What do you think would happen? And usually they will just say, it's just gonna be the same, miss, or I'll just keep going on. So it's also realizing, because probably it becomes automatic to their thoughts, na it's an automatic failure and all. But we have to really um, understand the underlying or the driving force behind their overachieving. So I think that's the one. No? So it's really trying to understand, and it really varies, no, from person to person. And the same thing as well for underachieving students. So when we see their grades, so we ask them, what's making it difficult for you to be able to perform well. And usually there are really different concerns. No, it's either they've been, we hear students na, miss, I've been working, no, so I'm not able to focus very well, or miss, I'm looking after my family member who got sick, so I cannot really focus on that. So when we know these reasons, um it's something that we share, we get to be more compassionate, we get to understand them, and probably from there you can make also accommodations from them. So if you can ask them, okay, I understand your situation. No, we've had students whose parents died last year, and they've been really asking help, miss, can you help me communicate with the teacher, because I'm actually shy. I don't know if they will accept me with my reason. They might think I'm just making excuses, but there are really those students who are struggling. So the same for our overachieving and underachieving students. It's really understanding them. What are their reasons? And we'll go from there. So it's not really a one size fits all in that case, hopefully.
So I hope that was insightful especially for our teachers who joined us today. So we kind of have those kinds of students, especially here in the University of the Philippines. We have a lot.
Yeah.
However, there are always ways to influence them, or to uh, ask them to be better in what they are doing, but not overstressing themselves. And also in helping also encourage those underachieving students to achieve a bit more and have goals in their studies and also in their lives later. Okay, so in the case of because there are some individuals, Ms. Jazz, who were asking if there are pro bono counseling that are available. So I think there's one participant,
Yeah.
Xavier, said that there are a couple of psychological services in the different areas of the country. And I think, Ms. Jazz, you also had COPES before.
Yeah, actually, we did have Cebu Popes before last year, but it only ran for just a few months, because all the counselors there are volunteers, and they're also employed in different universities and schools here in Cebu. And with the start of school, they have been very busy also attending to students and also doing programs. So unfortunately, we had to stop offering the services for the meantime. And I think right now it's also really a struggle, because there are only a few mental health professionals in the country. So which is why we really empower the general public in terms of psychological first aid, so at least we can assist somehow. And if in cases that there would be that it would really need further help, na we can refer to the mental health professionals. So yeah, we right now, because it's for I think here in Cebu City, there is, I think I'm familiar of Kauban. They're, for this month, they are offering actually free mental health consultations. But again, it's very limited in celebration of that. And I think there's still socialized help. No, of course, we cannot keep offering the services for free. I hope you understand that our mental health professionals also need to eat. We also have families to look after. So as much as we really want to keep offering it for free, it would eventually it would still come for a cost, but we will try to keep it minimal for people to really come and also look after their mental health.
Okay. So thank you so much, everyone, for being so interactive. You have a lot of insights and also a lot of questions. We apologize that we cannot answer all of those questions. However, Ms. Jazz, would you like them, if you wanted to reach Ms. Jazz, are they okay to reach you in your
Yes, yeah, sure. You can email me. I will type my email in the chat box. So if you have any questions, I will try to get back to you on it. So my email is in the chat box. That's jrsatorinas@up.edu.ph. So if you have any questions, and I will try to answer it for you, or if you need to reach or have consultations, probably then you can reach me through that email. So before we just end, I just want to get a feel of, let's say, what do you think is your biggest takeaway from this talk? So can you just chat it in the chat box so we can see, what are some of your biggest takeaways from this talk, and hopefully something that probably that really stood out for you, or something that you would apply as you leave or as you leave this webinar. So if you can type it in the chat box, and we'll see, what's the most common probably out of the most important takeaway probably. So go ahead and chat it in the chat box. And thank you so much also for the time that you have shared here. You're invested here. Okay. So we're seeing now some answers from our participants, how to really listen and not just to solve the problem. The process of radical acceptance, yes. It's a difficult process, but sometimes we have to, we have to just, the thing is, we can't change other people. It should be coming from them. And then protect your peace, words to prevent when counseling students. Okay. Has boundaries and limitations. That's true. No, being more sensitive to learners and to self. Okay. Importance of acceptance. Okay. How to communicate better whenever someone is opening up. Okay. Tips. No, usage of what I hope this is what instead of why. Okay. Information and psychiatry. Active listening. Sharing little is just as valuable as sharing a lot. Setting boundaries, 80% listening and 20% talking. Good. Okay. Children's feelings and emotions are valid. Taking care of self. Process of acceptance. Setting boundaries, right? How to be more sensitive. Wow. All these answers are really coming through, no? So thank you so much. All right. So with that, just keep your answers coming. So again, thank you so much. I hope that what you have learned in this webinar is something that you can also take out there and hopefully share also, and create a ripple hopefully to the people around you. So thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Jazz. Actually, there's also one who said that guidance counseling is also a good use of good questioning. Okay, so you'll be able
That's
to
true.
help your clients by actually asking the right questions. Okay, so thank you po. Thank you so much everyone for being here with us. We'll be giving you the link to the evaluation for this webinar. But before that, kindly open your cameras. May I ask everyone to open their cameras so that we can have a little bit of photo opportunity with Miss Jassilu. Okay.
Yes, Miss. So we have 12 slides. So just keep smiling po.
Smile, 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 because smile makes you more beautiful and guapo. Always remember that.
Yes,
And
po.
also, it also makes you happy. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy to see all of you. Nakita na gid ko ninyo. I'm able to see you all. And I'm very happy that you are always with us in our seminars, webinars in the TLRC. This public webinar is offered by the University of the Philippines Cebu Teaching and Learning Resource Center in cooperation with the Technology Transfer and Business Development Office and in collaboration with the Office of Student Affairs, where Ms. Jazz is one of our guidance counselors, guidance services specialists. Okay. Mike, marami tayo ngayon. Full house.
Yes po.
Proud of this.
As of before po tayo nag-start, umabot po tayo sa 2,052 registrants po. And we have the
Wow,
most
that's
number of
amazing.
registration po ever.
Kaya pala maraming tao sa YouTube Live. Nakikita
Yes
ko
po.
kasi kanina. Nag-check ako sa YouTube Live. Napakaraming tao. Thank you so much for joining us. The evaluation link can be found in the chat box that we have. Okay. For those listening from YouTube Live, kindly wait for further instructions coming from one of our members in the TLRC, Noel. So kindly make sure that you wait for her instructions. Okay, so a little bit of reminder for the evaluation. Our evaluation and processing of e-certificates are always automated, so please make sure to type in the correct spelling of your name since this will reflect on your e-certificates. Also, please be mindful in typing your email address because it is where you will receive your certificates. We suggest that you keep a copy of your responses in the evaluation for you to verify if you have made mistakes. Just make sure to click send me a copy of my response before submitting your responses. Normally, it takes less than 3 minutes after submitting to receive your certificate. And should you not be able to receive it by 5 p.m. today, just send a reply with your concern to the confirmation email that we sent. Make sure you look at your mailbox and look for msgalorio@up.edu.ph. We will manually send the certificate on the next working day. So make sure that you remember that. Okay? And this evaluation link is open for only 15 minutes. So make sure that you evaluate right now. The evaluation link can be found in the chat box that we have. Noel, any reminders for our upcoming webinars? I think we are already done with our psychosocial development webinars. We will be restarting it again next year. Okay, for now, we will be going forward with our teaching enhancement and student-based webinars. So technically, our next webinars will be either on a weekday or on Saturdays as well. Some webinars are jump-packed in the morning and some are jump-packed in the afternoon. So make sure if you have interest in those webinars, please do attend and participate again. So I think we have webinars on IP, intellectual property rights, as well as copyrights with
Yes,
the
miss.
director of the Technology Transfer and Business Development Office, Sir Jasaneva. Am I right, Noel?
Yes, miss. For our next webinar will be on Wednesday, October 13. This is research ethics for students and teachers. by Professor Magnolia.
Okay.
And then Jason's webinars will be on Saturdays, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. to 12.
Okay. So we have our next webinar next week. Am I right? Next week,
Yes.
Yes,
So-
we have the copyright review with Sir Jason. So for those interested about issues about copyrights, kasi importante siya ngayon lalo na sa online. So you are
Yes.
all invited to join po.
Okay. And we also have research ethics from the Secretary of the Research Ethics Committee of the University of the Philippines, Cebu, from Professor Magnolia Laos. She will be giving us a webinar on research ethics for teachers and students, especially that right now in the curriculum that we have in basic education as well in the higher education, we always have thesis writing or thesis writing. So it is very important for us to know about research ethics in conducting the researches for our theses or our masteral studies. Okay, so that would be next week with Professor Magnolia Laos. If you wanted to know more about our offerings, kindly make sure to follow us in our Facebook page at University of the Philippines Cebu Teaching and Learning Resource Center, or you can email us directly at lrc.upcebu.edu.ph. Okay.
Yes po, the registration link po for the research ethics posted na po sa Facebook page po natin. So just try to visit there po kung hindi pa kayo naka-register.
Okay, so if you want, register now. It's very timely, no? Research ethics as well as the intellectual property rights and copyrights, no? So kindly make sure. Aside from that, on October 20, this is another offering coming from the University of the Philippines, but this time from the program that will be celebrating their 50th anniversary next year, the University of the Philippines High School in Cebu. So the University of the Philippines High School in Cebu will be celebrating their Golden Jubilee, their 50th year anniversary next year in 2022. And because of that, the Alumni Association started creating a number of activities that both the alumni and the public can actually join. No? So this activity that we have in Tunog Bulawan webinar series that will be on October 20 is managing business in the post-pandemic area. We have very good speakers coming from big companies. Yes, and we also have reactors coming from the alumni of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. So we have speakers from batch 83, batch 2011, and batch 1998. All of them are successful businessmen and successful businesswomen in their field. And this will be hosted by one of our professors in the University of the Philippines, Cebu Master of Education Program, that's Dr. Aurelio Vilbar. Please make sure that you participate in the coming webinars on October. Do we have webinars on November, Michael? We have so much webinars in October.
Yes, for November's, we have upcomings also. In partnership with the Office of the Chancellor. So kasama na po doon yung virtual tour po for UP Cebu. So to know more about UP Cebu, yung mga colleges namin, yung area namin, you're all invited to see kung ano pong meron sa UP Cebu po.
Okay, so thank you so much. Please, if you wanted to be updated regarding these offerings, you can send us an email or you can just join us at our Facebook page at UP Cebu TLRs. Thank you so much. Salamat po sa lahat na dumalo ngayong araw na ito. Okay. Thank you so much also, Miss Jazz. we will be inviting you again for sure in our next webinar series. We always thank you for giving us a chance, no? Every time we invite, and as you can see, blockbuster po kayo. Always blockbuster.
Thank you, Miss. And stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Miss Jazz. See you on Monday. See you around, UP Cebu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Jazz.
Let's look for, let's add the Facebook page of UP Cebu in the chat box. Okay. So if you wanted to have an update, kindly go to the UP Cebu TLRC Facebook page. I already sent the link in there. So you can also have your registration there for the upcoming webinars that we have. We already posted it. Thank you po sa lahat ng dumalo. Okay, for those who are coming in from the YouTube live, kindly wait a bit. Noel and Michael will be giving you the links. Okay, the links are given to you right now. We'll be continually giving the links as long as individuals coming from the YT live are coming in. Thank you so much. You will be given a link. If you're coming from YT, kindly open the link.
After doing the evaluation, i-refresh nyo lang po yung browser nyo, especially yung browser na ginamit nyo sa inyong email ad po. Directly po, isi-send doon yung yung e-certificate po ninyo.
Okay, we're sending out the link now. Hopefully you're able to receive your certificates. If not, kindly make sure to email the confirmation or give a reply to the confirmation email at mscalorio@up.edu.ph.
Yes po, especially walang problema sa mga email address ninyo na nilagay. Diretso po, ma-receive nyo po kagad yan. Kaya make sure na tama po yung email address po ninyo.
Noel! Noel will be giving us the webinar reminder starting next week.
Yes, miss. Wala reaction si Noel.
Yes po, after filling out the evaluation form, you can actually leave the meeting or free to leave the meeting.
Noel, may tao pa sa YouTube natin?
Yes, sir, Mike na pa.
Okay, sige. Got my cert. Thank you, Ronald Gonyo. Receive na daw niya certificate niya.
Good to know you have received your certificates already. Thank you so much for joining. See you again in our next webinars. Okay. Michael, may I leave the floor to you? I will have to attend to my graduate students.
Okay, yes mo. Kami na pong bahala ni Miss Noel po. Thank you,
Noel,
Miss.
thank you so much for doing the the preliminaries for me. I'm so sorry. I was still talking to my students a while ago. I was late. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Noel. I'll be going
Thank you,
now.
Miss.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, Miss. Ano, it's a turning point for Noel, Miss. Na because of that,
Yes.
ano na.
Chrissy, ikaw ba yan? It's gonna be Noel.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll go now.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Sir Ninyo Ruin. Digicasyon. Thank you, sir, for joining. Miss No, napay tao, no?
Apa, Sir Mike. Dili man sila kasod, no? If wala sila ma-register.
Maujod. Wala man sila yung Zoom link o kuan. Mong di sila kasulod. Pero ano na lang,
Like even, okay. Like even if siguro na ay, like say, ID o password, but wala sila ni register. Like for example, akong gihatag nila. Dili gyapon sila kasod.
makasulod na sila.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. So if you're able to receive your certificates, you are free to leave na po. We are just doing the YouTube participants to do the evaluation po para mag-close na po tayo.
Napay mga 27 people, sir. Ako lang mo sila pa one of less than 20 then we can.
Okay. Sige, Miss. Thank you for joining po pala si Miss Madeline Binsig, Cebu Technological University. So, thank you for joining po. Actually, I'm a student po din po sa CTU for graduates this time po.
Okay na guro, Sir Mike, ang live.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Noel.
Thank you.
So Miss Noel, akong i-reclaim ang host ha para akong ma-off ang YouTube.
Okay. Kaya, makuha na ni mo.